You ever wake up one morning, step outside to enjoy your own backyard, and find your neighbor already sunbathing on your pool chair, claiming your pool belongs to the community? Yeah, that happened to me. My name's Douglas Gray, 64 years old, recently retired, and all I wanted was peace, a quiet home, a little garden, and a pool where I could swim without anyone telling me what to do. But instead I ended up in an all-out suburban war with a woman named Maya Bailey, a self-proclaimed HOA president, in a neighborhood that doesn't even have an HOA. What started as a friendly welcome to the neighborhood turned into trespassing, shouting police sirens, and one of the most ridiculous 911 calls you'll ever hear. So grab a seat, because this story has everything drama, chaos, and a woman who believed she owned the water itself. Before we dive in, tell me where you're watching from, drop your location and local time in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more crazy HOA stories like this one. When Linda and I first moved into that little slice of paradise, it felt like every dream we'd ever had finally came true. I'd spent 40 years of my life working on construction sites, building homes for other people, watching families move in and start their lives. When I finally retired, I promised myself that one day I'd build our home, one that didn't need to impress anyone, just a place where we could live quietly, swim whenever we wanted, and hear nothing but birds and wind. The house sat at the corner of a quiet cul-de-sac surrounded by tall maple trees and wide lawns. The previous owner had installed an in-ground pool with pale blue tiles that shimmered under sunlight. It looked like a mirror on calm mornings, and Linda would always say it felt like we owned a piece of the sky. Our first few weeks were peaceful. We unpacked boxes, planted roses, and invited a few new neighbors over for a barbecue. Everyone was friendly. Tom Harris, a retired firefighter from across the street, Ellen Brooks, a cheerful woman who ran the local bakery, and a few others who made us feel right at home. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally rest. And then one sunny Saturday afternoon, she appeared. Maya Bailey. She showed up unannounced, carrying a clipboard and a forced smile. She was in her mid-50s, with bright blonde hair that looked like it hadn't seen its natural color in 2 decades, and a voice that could slice through brick walls. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, her tone syrupy but sharp underneath. "I'm Maya. I'm the president of the HOA here." I blinked. I didn't know we had one. "Oh, technically it's unofficial," she said with a smirk, "but someone needs to keep things in order. We have community standards here, lawn height, fence, color, noise levels, that sort of thing. You understand." I laughed politely. "Well, I'm all for good neighbors, but we prefer to keep things simple. I'm not much of a committee guy." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "And I see you've got a pool. Beautiful addition to the community. We'll have to discuss access at some point." "Access," I repeated. "Of course. For neighborhood harmony. Shared amenities, promote goodwill." Linda, standing beside me, forced a smile. "Oh, we just finished moving in, maybe later." Maya's smile stiffened. "Of course," she said. "But the HOA loves inclusive spaces." When she left, Linda turned to me. "Inclusive? Did she just hint that she wants to use our pool?" I shrugged it off. "She's probably just being nosy." But that night, as we were sitting on the patio, sipping iced tea under the soft porch lights, I noticed something strange. A small piece of paper tucked under the welcome mat. It wasn't from a delivery. It was handwritten in a swirling cursive script. "For community harmony, please provide your pool gate code to ensure access for neighborhood use. Chairwoman Maya Bailey." I stared at it, half amused, half bewildered. Chairwoman. Is she running for mayor of the cul-de-sac? Linda laughed, but her laugh was uneasy. "Douglas, that woman's serious." The next morning I caught sight of Maya again. She was walking her tiny white dog, the kind that barks like a squeaky toy, but instead of heading down the sidewalk, she stopped near our fence and peered through the slats as if inspecting the pool. She had her phone out, snapping pictures. When she noticed me watching, she waved. "Just taking inventory for community records," she shouted. "Community records," I muttered under my breath. "There's no community office, lady." Linda leaned out from the kitchen window. "She's taking pictures again." "Yep." Linda rolled her eyes. "We've lived here less than a week, and she already thinks she's on patrol." That evening, I installed a motion light and a cheap camera over the back gate just in case. I didn't expect to actually need it, but I had a feeling this woman didn't understand boundaries. A few days later, the first confrontation happened. It was a Tuesday morning around 7 a.m. I was still half asleep when someone started pounding on the front door like the police. I threw on my robe and opened it to find Maya fully dressed in a pink suit jacket, holding her clipboard like a badge. "Good morning, Douglas," she chirped. "I'm here to collect the pool gate code." I blinked, thinking I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" She repeated it slowly like she was talking to a child. The pool gate code. Why in the world would you need that? Well, she said, as if explaining basic logic, as your neighbor, I'm entitled to reasonable access to community amenities. It's not a community amenity, I said flatly. It's my backyard. Maya frowned, flipping through her clipboard. The HOA guidelines. There is no HOA, I interrupted, trying not to laugh. Technically, this subdivision was registered under a community covenant back in the 1990 seconds, she said, pretending to read something official. Which means any shared resource visible from another property may fall under community access provisions. I stared at her. You made that up. Her face turned red. You're being unreasonable, Mr. Gray. It's very selfish to keep something so nice all to yourself. I could organize pool days, community events. I stepped outside and gently but firmly said, "Ma'am, you're trespassing now. Please leave." Her lips tightened. Fine. But don't say I didn't try to keep things civil. And with that, she stormed off her heels, clicking on the driveway like gunfire. I went back inside, shaking my head. Linda was waiting with a cup of coffee and a raised eyebrow. "Let me guess," she said. "Pool access bingo. She's out of her mind." "Probably. But let's give her the benefit of the doubt." "Benefit of the doubt," Linda scoffed. "You just told her she's not allowed in your backyard. That woman's going to take it personally." She was right. That afternoon, as I grilled burgers for lunch, I caught Maya watching me through her second-floor window, arms crossed, face twisted in disapproval. Every few minutes, she'd lift her phone and snap a photo. I turned, waved at her, and smiled like I was on vacation. That seemed to make her furious. By evening, she sent an email, yes, an actual email, with the subject line, "Notice of Non-Compliance Pool Access Refusal." In it, she accused me of violating neighborhood harmony, hoarding amenities, and endangering social unity. Linda laughed so hard she nearly dropped her phone. "Endangering social unity? What is this, the Cold War?" I replied with one sentence. "There is no HOA and you do not have access to my pool. Please do not contact me again about this." I thought that would be the end of it. But with Maya Bailey, it was just the opening act. Because in her mind, she wasn't just a neighbor, she was the law. And I was the man who dared to say no. And if there's one thing people like Maya can't stand, it's someone who refuses to play by their imaginary rules. 3 days passed after that bizarre non-compliance email, and things around the neighborhood started to feel monitored. Every time I walked out to water the roses or skim a few leaves off the pool, I'd spot Maya's curtains fluttering a faint shadow behind them, or the gleam of a phone camera catching the sunlight. I'd worked on construction sites my whole life, seen inspectors, project managers, and bureaucrats of every flavor. But never in my career had I met anyone who inspected other people's lawns for sport. Linda tried to brush it off. "She'll get bored soon," she said, lighting a citronella candle on the porch. "Nobody can stay obsessed with a pool forever." "Don't bet on it," I muttered. "I think she's building a case file." And I wasn't wrong. That Friday morning, I stepped outside to grab the newspaper, and there it was again, another folded note tucked under the doormat. "Failure to comply with community access requests may result in penalties. Please submit your pool gate code by Monday to avoid further escalation. Chairwoman Maya Bailey." I couldn't help laughing. Penalties. What is she going to do, revoke my backyard privileges? Linda wasn't amused. "Douglas, she's clearly unstable. What if she actually tries something?" I shrugged. "Then I'll call the cops. It's private property. Case closed." Except it wasn't. That same afternoon, I heard the unmistakable click of a gate latch. I looked out the window, and there was Maya right in my side yard, clipboard in hand, inspecting the fence like she was a building inspector from the county. I stepped outside. "Morning, Maya, lose your way." She didn't even flinch. "Just verifying compliance," she said. "The height of your fence seems inconsistent with Section 4 of the neighborhood guidelines." "There are no guidelines," I said, struggling to keep my tone civil. "And you're standing on my property. That's called trespassing." Her lips pressed together. "If you're going to be hostile, I'll have to file a report." "Report to who?" She smiled thinly. "The board." "The imaginary one?" I asked. That got her. Her face turned the color of an overripe tomato. "You know what, Douglas, you're making a mockery of community order." "Community order doesn't mean my pool belongs to you," I said. "Now, please go home." She stormed off without another word, but her silence didn't last long. By sunset, she had posted a bright yellow notice on my mailbox: "Community violation, unauthorized fence construction, and denial of shared amenity access." Linda stared at it in disbelief. "She made this on PowerPoint." I peeled it off, crumpled it, and tossed it into the trash. "That's it. I'm done being polite." That night, I sent her an email of my own calm, professional, but direct. Maya, you are not authorized to enter my property, photograph my home, or distribute notices on my mailbox. If you continue to harass us, I will contact the sheriff's department for trespassing and harassment. This is your only warning. Douglas Gray, she replied within 2 minutes. You'll regret this tone, Douglas. The HOA protects compliant residents, not rebels. Rebels. That word made me laugh. I didn't realize relaxing in my own pool made me a revolutionary. The next morning, I woke to the sound of muffled voices out front. Peering through the blinds, I saw Maya standing on the sidewalk with 2 other neighbors, Paul Jensen, who lived 2 doors down, and Nancy Walker, the lady who jogged every morning with her golden retriever. Maya was talking animatedly, pointing at my backyard fence, waving her clipboard around like a preacher with a Bible. Linda joined me at the window. She's gossiping again. I'd say she's campaigning. Campaigning for what I sighed. For control. Later that afternoon, as I worked in the garage, Paul wandered over looking uneasy. Hey, Doug, he began, rubbing the back of his neck. I just wanted to clear something up. Maya said you were refusing to let anyone use the community pool. The what pool? He gestured toward my backyard. Paul, I said, keeping my voice calm, that's my private pool. There's no HOA here and nobody besides me, and my wife has permission to use it. He looked embarrassed. Yeah, that's what I figured. She's been going door to door saying you're some kind of neighborhood gatekeeper. I told her it didn't sound right. I chuckled. Appreciate that, Paul. But if she comes around again, tell her to direct any complaints to the homeowner, me. That evening, I sat by the pool with a cold beer, thinking the worst was over. But peace never lasts long when you live next to someone who needs an audience. Just after sunset, I heard the familiar creak of the side gate again. The motion light flicked on, and there she was, Maya, flashlight in hand, scribbling notes like a crime scene investigator. I stepped out quietly. Maya, if you take one more step, I'll have you escorted off the property. She spun around, startled but defiant. You can't stop me. You're obstructing community oversight. Community oversight doesn't mean sneaking into my yard at night, I snapped. She glared at me, muttering, You're a control freak, Douglas Gray. A real dictator of the cul-de-sac. I pointed toward the gate. Out. Now. She left, slamming it behind her so hard that the latch broke. Linda came out moments later. What happened? Same thing as before, I sighed. She's escalating. By the next morning, half the street had heard about the incident. Maya told anyone who would listen that I'd physically threatened her during a routine HOA inspection. Tom Harris came over holding a coffee mug. You know, Doug, he said, I've dealt with crazies in my firefighting days, but she's on another level. You should probably start documenting this. Already done, I said, pointing to the new security camera above the gate. If she steps foot here again, I'll have proof. Sure enough, that evening, she tried again, this time standing just outside the fence, yelling over it like a town crier. I'll have you fined, Douglas. You can't defy the HOA forever. I sat in a lawn chair, sunglasses on, pretending not to hear. The quieter I was, the louder she got. Finally, I said, Maya, you can't fine me for something that doesn't exist. Oh, it exists, she shrieked. And you're going to regret mocking me. She stormed off, but not before taking one last photo of my illegal pool ladder. Linda sighed. You think she'll ever stop? Not until she's humiliated herself publicly, I said. And knowing Maya, that shouldn't take long. That night, I reviewed the security footage there. She was clearly on my property, waving a clipboard like a sword. I saved the video, labeled it Exhibit A, and went to bed feeling oddly prepared for whatever came next. Because deep down, I knew Maya Bailey wasn't finished. People like her never stop until someone draws a line thick enough they can't cross. And as far as I was concerned, that line was the edge of my pool. By the time the weekend rolled around, the air between our 2 houses felt charged like the hum before a thunderstorm. Maya hadn't spoken to me since her nighttime inspection, but that didn't mean she'd given up. No, she was regrouping. The calm before the storm. Saturday morning started beautifully. The sun was out, Linda had made lemonade, and the pool water sparkled like polished glass. We decided to host a small barbecue, nothing fancy, just a few friends and neighbors to lighten the mood. Tom Harris brought ribs, Ellen Brooks came with her famous peach cobbler, and even Paul Jensen showed up carrying a 6-pack of craft beer. For a while, everything was perfect. Laughter, music, the smell of grilled meat, it felt like our little corner of the world was whole again. Until the pink blazer showed up at the fence. I saw her out of the corner of my eye, first standing stiffly by her side of the property line, arms crossed, sunglasses perched on her nose like she was watching a crime scene. Maya Bailey didn't blend in. She projected herself into the landscape like an unwanted statue. Linda noticed too. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she muttered. Maya's voice cut through the music. "Excuse me," Tom turned down the speaker. I sighed. "Afternoon, Maya." Her lips pursed. "Do you have a permit for this gathering?" "Permit," I repeated. "It's a backyard barbecue, not a concert." "You're violating community quiet hours," she snapped. "The noise level is unacceptable." Tom glanced at his watch. "It's 3 in the afternoon. That's not the point," she said sharply. "You're disturbing neighborhood harmony," Ellen whispered to Linda. "Is she serious?" Linda nodded grimly. "Deadly." I tried to keep my cool. "Maya, this is my private property. We're well within city noise limits. If you've got a complaint, file it with the city, not your imaginary HOA." That last line must have struck a nerve because she turned redder than the coals in my grill. "Fine," she hissed. "But don't expect leniency when the board reviews this." There is no board. I called after her, but she was already storming away. The party went on, though. It took a minute to shake off the awkwardness. Still, the laughter came back. The burgers kept sizzling, and by sunset everyone was relaxed again. But peace never lasts long when your neighbor's hobby is chaos. The next morning, as I sat on the porch with my coffee, a police cruiser rolled slowly up the street and stopped in front of my house. 2 officers stepped out, young guys, polite smiles. "Morning, sir," one said. "We got a noise complaint from this address." I almost spit my coffee. "You're kidding," the officer chuckled. "No, sir. The caller said there was an unauthorized public event involving amplified music, open flames, and alcohol distribution." Linda came out just in time to hear that. "Distribution? We were drinking beer, not running a bar." The officer's grin widened. "That's what I figured. Just need to check any issues with a neighbor named." He flipped his notepad. "Maya Bailey," I groaned. "Of course." He nodded knowingly. "You're not her first call." After verifying everything was fine, the officers left, shaking their heads. But as their car disappeared down the road, I noticed Maya standing behind her curtain again, holding a phone and glaring at me. That's when I realized she wasn't trying to win anything. She just wanted to wear us down, one absurd confrontation at a time. By Monday morning, a new letter appeared in my mailbox, this time printed on official-looking paper with a fake HOA logo. "Notice of violation: excessive noise and disruptive behavior. Homeowner is hereby fined $250 for non-compliance with HOA guidelines." Linda laughed so hard she nearly cried. She made a fake fine notice. "Oh, she's creative, I'll give her that." "She's crazy," Linda corrected. That evening, Tom stopped by again. "Doug, she handed me one too," he said, waving a similar notice. "Only mine says, failure to report neighbor disturbance." I stared at him. "She's issuing fines to other people now. She dropped them in half the mailboxes on the block," he said, shaking his head. "Ellen said hers accuses her of enabling unapproved gatherings." Linda sighed. "We're living in a sitcom." "Not for long," I muttered. "This ends now." So I called the sheriff's office again and explained everything. The deputy officer, Reed, remembered me from the earlier pool code fiasco. He chuckled. "Mr. Gray, I've got 3 reports from her already: noise, unauthorized fence, and something about a hostile HOA rebellion. You're not in trouble, but she's crossing into harassment territory." "Can I press charges?" I asked. "Not yet," he said. "Document everything. Every note, every fake notice, every photo. Once we have a pattern, we can move forward." I thanked him and hung up. That night, I scanned all her letters, logged dates, and stored copies on a flash drive. But of course, Maya wasn't done. Tuesday afternoon, as I was mowing the lawn, I noticed something odd. The wooden fence between our yards had been spray painted. In neat white block letters, someone had written, "Community Property Shared Use Area." I shut off the mower, heart pounding. "You've got to be kidding me." Linda came running out. "What the she tagged my fence," I said. With community property, we had the footage. The motion light caught her at 2:17 a.m., wearing a hoodie, holding a spray can. That was the breaking point. I called Officer Reed again, sent him the footage, and filed an official complaint. He came by that evening, reviewed the evidence, and shook his head. "This lady's not just overstepping, she's delusional. We'll pay her a visit." The next morning, Maya's car was gone for most of the day. I thought maybe she'd gotten the message. But around sunset, when I stepped out to check the mail, she appeared out of nowhere, blocking the sidewalk with that ever-present clipboard. "You called the police on me," she said flatly. "Because you vandalized my fence," I replied. Her eyes were cold, distant. "I was enforcing community guidelines." "There are no community guidelines," I snapped. "You keep saying that," she said quietly, "but one day everyone will see who's right." She turned and walked away, but before she reached her driveway, she muttered something under her breath. I couldn't make it out completely, but it sounded like, "If he won't share, I'll make him." That night, Linda double-checked every lock and closed every curtain. She's unstable, Doug. We should stay with Tom for a few days. I'm not running from a lunatic with a clipboard, I said. She wants control, that's what this is about. If we act scared, she wins. Linda sighed. Just promise me you'll be careful. I promise. But deep down, I could feel the tension building. I'd seen people like Maya before, bullies who mask their insecurities with authority. But what made her dangerous wasn't her ego, it was her obsession. And soon that obsession would boil over into something even the police couldn't laugh off. Because when someone convinces themselves they're the law, there's no telling how far they'll go to enforce it. I thought the spray paint incident would be the peak of Maya's madness. I was wrong. That woman had an entire sequel planned. It was a Thursday morning, early summer, warm sunlight spilling across the backyard. I was halfway through my first cup of coffee when Linda screamed from the kitchen, "Douglas, you'd better come out here right now." Her tone wasn't the usual. "There's a raccoon in the trash again," kind of alarm. It was sharp, shaking. I rushed outside, still in my slippers, and nearly dropped my mug. There, stretched out on our patio chair beside the pool, was Maya Bailey herself. Pink sun hat sunglasses, glass of something amber in her hand, and a smug smile that could curdle milk. She looked like she owned the place. "Morning, Douglas," she said lazily. "Lovely weather, isn't it? Perfect for some community relaxation." For a second I was too stunned to speak. Linda's voice came from behind me, trembling with fury. "What are you doing here, Maya?" She raised her glass like a toast. "Just enjoying the shared amenity. You really should have filed that pool registration form sooner." "There is no shared amenity," I snapped. "And you're trespassing." Maya chuckled, utterly unbothered. "Oh, please. I pay HOA fees, which means I'm contributing to the neighborhood's aesthetic value. That gives me a right to benefit from it." Linda looked ready to explode. "Lady, this isn't a public park. You broke into our yard, don't be dramatic," Maya said, settling back in her chair. "The gate wasn't locked. If you don't want guests, maybe invest in better fencing." That was it. I could feel my pulse hammering. "Get out, right now," she smirked. "You can't make me leave, Douglas. This is technically an easement zone." I looked it up. "There is no easement through my pool deck." "Oh, there will be," she said, swirling her drink. "I'm already drafting a proposal." I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to shout. "Maya, I'm giving you one last chance. Leave my property or I'll call the police." Her face twisted into a mocking grin. "Go ahead, call them. They'll tell you the same thing. They work for the county, and the county recognizes HOA oversight." Linda was already dialing. "Let's test that theory." The moment Linda said trespassing into the phone, Maya's fake confidence wavered. She stood up too quickly, stumbling slightly, and that's when I caught the smell, strong, sour, unmistakably alcohol. "Maya, are you drunk?" I asked. She lifted her chin. "It's called relaxation, Douglas. Maybe you should try it sometime." Before I could respond, she marched toward the patio door like she owned it. "I'll just let myself inside to refresh my drink." I stepped in front of her. "You're not going anywhere near my house." She tried to push past me, muttering something about community rights, but I held my ground. "Maya, out." She shoved me once hard enough that I had to grab the door frame to keep balance. "Don't touch me," she shrieked as if I had attacked her. That was enough. I pulled the door shut, locked it, and said through the glass, "You have 30 seconds before the police arrive." For a long moment, she just stood there glaring at me through her oversized sunglasses. Then she spat on the patio floor, kicked over one of Linda's flower pots, and stormed toward the gate. "Fine," she yelled. "But this isn't over, Gray. You'll regret making an enemy out of me." By the time Officer Reed arrived, Maya was gone. He listened patiently as I showed him the security footage. The video was perfect, Maya walking in through the side gate with her sun hat, dragging a lounge chair to the perfect spot beside the pool, and even pouring herself a drink from a thermos she'd brought along. Reed sighed. "Yeah, that's definitely trespassing, and maybe public intoxication if we wanted to push it." "Can you arrest her?" Linda asked hopefully. "Not retroactively," Reed said. "But I'll pay her a visit, and make it clear she's not to set foot here again." "You've got enough evidence for a restraining order if she keeps it up?" Linda crossed her arms. "She will keep it up." Reed nodded. "Then keep the cameras rolling." The next few days were quiet, eerily so. Maya's car was gone, her curtains closed, her little white dog nowhere to be seen. I almost dared to believe she'd learned her lesson. Then, on Sunday afternoon, I spotted her again. She was standing on the sidewalk in front of my house, arms folded, watching me as I cleaned the pool filter. When I looked up, she smiled one of those slow, cold smiles that says, "You think this is over, but it's not." "Enjoying your private oasis," she called out. "Yep," I said. "And it's going to stay private." She tilted her head. "We'll see about that." That evening, a printed letter was taped to my front door. no envelope no postage. Just the same self-appointed title at the top. HOA Enforcement Office Notice of Violation. Subject unauthorized restriction of community amenities pool area. Immediate action required. Failure to comply may result in legal escalation and loss of neighborhood privileges. Linda tore it down, crumpled it, and threw it straight into the fire pit. I'm done pretending this woman is normal. I think she's trying to provoke me, I said. She wants me to snap so she can play victim. Linda frowned. She doesn't need help looking crazy. I nodded. Yeah, but she's cunning. There's a line between delusional and dangerous, and she's crossing it. We decided to take precautions. I installed a taller gate with a lock, added another camera facing the driveway, and even put up a new sign, private property, no trespassing, security cameras active. The next morning it was gone. Someone had unscrewed it and left it face down in the flower bed. That's when I knew Maya wasn't acting out of confusion anymore. This was control. A game of domination she refused to lose. That night, while reviewing camera footage, I caught her again. Around midnight, she crept up to the back fence, flashlight in hand, and peered through the slats at the pool. Then she muttered something to herself and walked away. The next morning, she called me. Her tone was syrupy, fake sweet. Douglas, I wanted to clear the air. Let's be civil neighbors, shall we? Sounds great, I said cautiously. Good, she purred. Then you won't mind giving me the gate code, just for emergencies, of course. I laughed out loud. You mean like last time you got thirsty on my patio? She paused, then hissed. You think you're clever, but you'll regret mocking me. And she hung up. Linda shook her head. She's unraveling. I rubbed my temples. No, she's plotting. Big difference. Later that day, Officer Reed called to check in. We gave her a formal warning, he said. She wasn't happy. Kept arguing about shared resources. I'd keep your doors locked for a while. That night, I sat out on the patio watching the stars reflect in the water. Everything looked calm, still, peaceful, but it was the kind of calm that makes you uneasy, the silence before something breaks. I remember saying to Linda, half joking, "At least she can't top sunbathing in our yard." Linda smiled faintly. "Don't underestimate crazy, Doug. It always finds a new level." She was right, because the next time Maya showed up, she wasn't holding a drink. She was holding a clipboard, a camera crew, and a handful of papers that looked suspiciously like legal documents. And that's when our quiet little suburb turned into a full-blown spectacle. The day everything boiled over started like a postcard. Blue skies, a light breeze, and a backyard that looked like peace itself. Linda and I had spent the morning preparing for a small get-together, just some friends, burgers, a little music. After weeks of stress, we needed laughter more than anything. By noon, the grill was sizzling, the radio played classic rock, and laughter echoed off the water. Tom Harris had brought his signature ribs, Ellen Brooks carried a tray of cupcakes, and Paul Jensen was already knee-deep in pool games, with a couple of our younger neighbors' kids. For the first time in months, I felt normal again. I thought, maybe Maya finally got tired of her own drama. That illusion lasted all of 20 minutes. I was flipping burgers when Linda stiffened and pointed toward the fence. "Douglas, tell me that's not a camera crew." I turned, and sure enough, there she was. Maya Bailey, dressed like she was running for office, pink blazer, pressed heels, digging into the grass. In one hand, her infamous clipboard, in the other a small handheld camera. Behind her stood two confused teenagers holding phones on selfie sticks, clearly recruited for documentation. What in the Tom began? Before he could finish, Maya unlatched the side gate and strode right into the yard like she was walking onto a stage. "Good afternoon, residents," she called out, voice high and theatrical. "As acting president of the HOA, I am here to enforce emergency community code revisions effective immediately." Every head turned. Ellen whispered, "Is she serious?" "Oh, she's serious," I muttered. Maya held up a paper as though it were the Declaration of Independence. "This pool has been classified as a shared amenity under neighborhood visual enjoyment rights." Paul frowned. "Visual, what now?" "It means," Maya continued, her voice growing louder, "that any property improvement visible from public or adjoining lots contributes to collective value and therefore cannot be monopolized by a single household." I blinked. "Maya, that's not how property law works." She ignored me, turning toward her camera crew. "Make sure you're recording this official documentation of non-compliance." Tom put down his ribs. "Lady, you need to leave before someone calls the cops again." Maya gave him a glare so sharp it could have cut glass. "This doesn't concern you, citizen. This is an internal HOA matter." I took a step forward, hands raised. "Maya, I've tried being patient. You've trespassed, vandalized, harassed, and now you're crashing a family gathering. This stops now." Her grin widened. "Oh, I'm just getting started." Before I could react, she stormed past me right up to the edge of the pool and shouted, "Everyone out of my pool." For a split second, nobody moved. Then laughter broke out. Paul nearly choked on his drink. "Your pool," he said. "You've lost it, lady." That's when she lost her composure completely. Maya stomped her heel into the ground, shrieking, "I said out," and to everyone's horror shoved Paul straight into the water. He surfaced sputtering, still laughing. "Congratulations, you're insane," I rushed forward. "Maya, that's enough." She turned, face twisted in rage, and swung her clipboard like a sword, smacking it against my shoulder. "You're violating Section 4, she screamed. "I have the right to enforce Section 4 of what I shouted. The HOA bylaws. There is no HOA. Her breathing was erratic, her eyes wild. "Then I'll make one." I reached for her wrist, trying to stop her from swinging again. "Maya, you need to leave before this gets worse." She yanked free, and in one swift motion slapped me across the face. The whole yard went silent. Linda gasped, rushing to my side. Douglas, even Maya froze for a moment, realizing what she'd done. Then, as if doubling down on her insanity, she shouted, "He assaulted me." "What?" Tom bellowed. "We all saw you hit him." Maya stumbled backward, grabbing her phone. "I'm calling 911. He attacked an HOA officer." I laughed incredulously. "You're out of your mind." "Mind your tone, Douglas Gray," she barked. "You're on camera." I pulled out my own phone and said evenly, "Good, let's make it official." As she started dialing, I hit my emergency contact. Officer Reed's number was already saved. "Reed," I said when he picked up, "it's Gray. She's back. Assaulted me. Claims she's calling 911 on me. You'd better send someone before she drowns herself in paperwork." He sighed. "We're on the way." Maya was pacing now, still on the phone. "Yes, operator, I'd like to report trespassing and assault in progress. They're using my pool." Her voice cracked on the last word. When the sirens finally echoed down the street, she looked almost triumphant. "You're done," she hissed. "They'll believe me. I'm the authority here." The police car pulled up, lights flashing. 2 officers stepped out. One of them, thankfully, was Reed. He took one look at me, another at Maya, soaked, disheveled, holding a clipboard like a weapon, and his expression said it all. "Maya," he said calmly, "what seems to be the problem this time?" "They're trespassing," she shouted, pointing wildly at my guests. "They broke into my pool," Reed blinked. "Your pool?" "Yes, I'm the HOA president." Reed looked around, taking in the confused faces, the untouched burgers, the laughter barely contained behind covered mouths. "Maya," he said, voice slow, deliberate, "there is no HOA." Her mouth fell open. "What? There's no record of an active homeowners association in this subdivision," he said. "You've been told this before." "That's impossible," she whispered. "I run it," he sighed. "You ran your mouth. There's a difference." She started trembling, the papers in her hands fluttering. "You don't understand. They're ruining the community. The property values." Reed held up a hand. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step away from the pool." "No," she screamed, suddenly lunging toward the ladder like she was trying to pull it out again. That was the last straw. The other officer moved quickly, grabbing her by the arm. "Ma'am, that's enough." She kicked, splashing water everywhere. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA." "Not today, you're not," Reed said, as they guided her toward the car. As they loaded her into the cruiser, she kept shouting through the window, "This isn't over, Douglas. You'll pay fines, I'll file appeals, The door shut with a satisfying thunk. Silence blanketed the backyard for a moment. Then, Paul, still dripping wet, raised his beer can and said, "To the craziest pool party of all time." Laughter erupted. Even Linda cracked a smile through her exhaustion. Reed came over, shaking his head. "She's got a history," he said quietly. "We ran her record 3 previous complaints for harassment in other neighborhoods. Looks like she's got a pattern." I sighed. "Guess we're lucky she didn't build a moat." "She'll probably spend the night in holding," Reed said. "You should consider filing for a restraining order. My report will help." Linda put her hand on my arm. "We will." After they left, the sun began to dip, painting the sky in orange and pink streaks. The laughter faded into soft conversation, and for the first time all day I exhaled. Ellen leaned over. "Douglas, I've lived here 20 years and I've never seen anything like that." "Neither have I said. "But I think we've officially exorcised the HOA demon." She grinned. "Better print that on a t-shirt." We cleaned up the mess, relit the tiki torches, and let the evening unwind naturally. For once, the only sound was the gentle ripple of water and the low hum of crickets. I sat back in my chair, rubbing the faint sting on my cheek, where she'd slapped me, and chuckled softly. "Linda," I said, "next time we throw a party, remind me to put 'no HOAs allowed' on the invite." She smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder. "Deal." The morning after the pool party showdown, the neighborhood felt strangely calm. No shouting, no fake notices, no pink blazer appearing over the fence. For the first time in months, the air didn't carry that quiet tension that follows chaos. Linda brewed coffee, humming to herself, the kind of hum that meant she was trying to believe the storm was over. I sat at the patio table, nursing my sore shoulder and reading through the police report Officer Reed had emailed. He'd been thorough: property trespass, physical assault, disturbance of the peace, and harassment, all filed under repeat offender. According to his note, Maya Bailey had been released early that morning after a psych evaluation. No further contact recommended, the report said. Recommended, not guaranteed. Linda came out with 2 mugs. Do you think she's gone for good? I blew across the steam, staring into the water. With Maya, she'll either move or come back with a clipboard. Linda sighed. I can't tell which one's worse. I was about to answer when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. A woman's voice spoke, calm, professional, almost too smooth. Good morning, Mr. Gray. This is Sergeant Amy Lewis from the County Sheriff's Office. I wanted to update you on the Bailey case. Oh, thank God, I said. Please tell me she's finally getting some help. Well, the sergeant hesitated. We did a background check. Turns out Mrs. Bailey has been involved in similar incidents across 3 different communities over the past decade. Filed complaints, harassed homeowners, even impersonated HOA officials. In each case, she moved right before charges could stick. I pinched the bridge of my nose. So she's done this before? Yes, sir, the sergeant said. You and your wife did the right thing, calling it in. You're not her first victims, but you might be the last. We forwarded everything to the county prosecutor. I'd strongly advise filing for a restraining order as soon as possible. Already on it, I said. Good, she said. We'll keep you informed. And for what it's worth, Mr. Gray, I read the incident report. You handled yourself with restraint most people wouldn't have. I chuckled tiredly. Ma'am, I was a construction foreman for 40 years. I've dealt with screaming clients and collapsing walls. She's still the most unstable thing I've ever seen. That made the sergeant laugh softly. Stay safe, sir. When I hung up, Linda was watching me. Well, she's done this before. 3 neighborhoods. Linda's jaw tightened. She's not crazy, she's addicted to power. Yeah, I said. And she just keeps finding new places to play queen. By noon, half the neighborhood had heard about the arrest. Tom dropped by with a box of donuts, looking both amused and cautious. Morning, Doug. You see the neighborhood Facebook page? I raised an eyebrow. No. Why? He grinned. She's on there. Or at least was. Before they banned her. He handed me his phone. The group feed was a mess, dozens of posts, all time-stamped the night before. Maya B. Warning. New residents violating HOA codes and endangering community peace. Maya B. Police corruption in our county. They're protecting trespassers. Maya B. If you value property values, boycott the Grays' fake pool parties. Each one was met with a flood of laughing emojis and comments like, girl, there's no HOA. This isn't the Truman Show, calm down. Maya, seek help. Tom chuckled. She tried to fine the entire street for participating in your illegal event. I shook my head. She's got a gift for humiliation. Guess that gift's finally working against her, Tom said, setting down the donuts. She's packing boxes this morning. That made Linda pause mid-sip. You're serious. Dead serious, Tom said. Moving trucks out front right now. I stood looking toward the fence. Through the cracks, I could see the corner of a U-Haul van and 2 movers hauling boxes down her driveway. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant, but instead I just felt tired. She's leaving, I murmured. Just like that. Linda exhaled slowly. Maybe peace isn't a myth after all. But as I watched one of the movers carry a box labeled Files HOA Correspondence, I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't done entirely. People like Maya didn't quit, they relocated. A few hours later, Officer Reed stopped by for a quick follow-up. She's officially out, he said. Moved across town to a condo. Management, there's already been warned. Linda smiled faintly. Guess she'll find a new committee to terrorize, Reed chuckled. Probably. But she won't be back here, restraining orders in effect. And we've added a neighborhood watch alert under your address, just in case. Appreciate it, I said, shaking his hand. When he left, Linda wrapped her arm around me. So, Mr. Gray, what are you going to do with all this peace and quiet, honestly, I said. I might actually swim in my own pool without looking over my shoulder. That evening, as the sun dipped low, I sat at the water's edge, legs dangling in the pool. The ripples shimmered gold, and the reflection of the house danced across the surface like it was finally exhaling. For the first time, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. Ellen stopped by, briefly holding a casserole dish. "Brought this for you two," she said. "A little congratulations on surviving HOA hell gift." Linda laughed. "We'll need a new shelf just for all these sympathy casseroles," Ellen smiled. "You know, Doug, there's a rumor that the new neighbors moving into her place are a young couple with twin toddlers." "Toddlers," I grinned. "Good. Maybe they'll scream loud enough to haunt her memory." That night, after everyone was gone, I sat in the backyard one last time. The air was warm, the cicadas humming, and the pool lights glowed soft blue. Then I noticed something, a small white envelope tucked under the back gate. My stomach sank as I picked it up. The handwriting was unmistakable. "To Douglas Gray, you think you've won, but order always returns. I'll be watching." MB Linda found me holding it a minute later. "Oh no," she said. "Relax," I replied, tossing it into the fire pit. Let her watch from a distance. We've got cameras, locks, and better things to do than play in her fantasy HOA. The envelope burned quickly, curling into ash. The smoke rose into the night sky, vanishing among the stars. For the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. The following week, I went to the courthouse and finalized the restraining order. Officer Reed met me outside afterward, handing me a signed copy. "You did everything right, Doug," he said. "And now she's officially off your back." I smiled. "You know, I almost missed the excitement." He laughed. "Don't say that too loud. She might hear you." We shook hands, and that was the last time I ever heard Maya Bailey's name, at least in my neighborhood. From that day forward, the only thing that disturbed my backyard was the gentle splash of water and the laughter of friends. And sometimes when I sat out there at dusk, watching the golden ripples fade into dark, I thought about how something as simple as a pool could reveal who people really are. Maya wanted control. I just wanted peace. And in the end, peace won not by fighting louder, but by outlasting the noise. It's funny how silence can sound deafening after months of chaos. The first few mornings without Maya's voice echoing over the fence felt almost unreal, like the neighborhood itself was holding its breath, testing the idea that peace could really last. Linda noticed it too. One afternoon she stood by the pool, arms crossed, smiling softly. "You know," she said, "it's strange not hearing anyone accuse us of violating community harmony." I laughed. "Yeah, almost makes you miss the daily entertainment," she smirked. "Don't even joke about that, Douglas Gray." Life slowly returned to normal, though normal felt different now. I'd started doing small repairs I'd ignored during the months of distraction, repainting the fence, trimming the maple trees, fixing the pool light Maya had somehow unscrewed during her inspections. Tom Harris dropped by every few days, usually bringing donuts or a thermos of coffee. We'd sit on the porch talking about everything except HOA drama. Every time he left, he'd say, "Still quiet," and I'd grin, quiet as the grave. Ellen Brooks organized a proper neighborhood barbecue, one that didn't end with police lights flashing. This time everyone came, families, kids, even newcomers moving into Maya's old house, a young couple named Jordan and Claire Davis, both teachers with twin toddlers who giggled constantly. The kind of people who made a place feel alive again. When I first met them, Jordan shook my hand firmly and said, "We heard stories about the woman who used to live next door. Something about fake fines," Linda snorted. "Oh, that was the mild part." We all laughed, and for the first time I realized we weren't just celebrating Maya's departure, we were celebrating survival. But there was still one thing left undone. The restraining order had been finalized, the cameras installed, the fences repaired, yet part of me couldn't rest until I made sure no one else fell into her trap. So one morning, I drove down to the county courthouse to drop off copies of the video evidence for the prosecutor's office. The clerk behind the counter, a woman named Sandy, flipped through the folder and frowned. "Maya Bailey, we've got 2 active cases under that name already. She's consistent, I'll give her that." I raised an eyebrow. 2 other victims," Sandy nodded. "Different neighborhoods, similar pattern. Tries to set up an HOA where there isn't one, bullies. Homeowners calls the cops when they don't comply. Textbook power obsession. Sounds about right," I said. "Think she'll ever stop?" Sandy smiled faintly. "People like her, they don't stop. They just run out of places to rule." I left the courthouse feeling lighter. The clouds had thinned, the sunlight spilled across the parking lot, and for once the world didn't feel like it was waiting for the next explosion. When I got home, Linda was on the patio sipping lemonade and reading a book. The twins next door were splashing in a kiddie pool, their laughter ringing through the air. For the first time in months, it didn't make me tense. It just sounded like life. She looked up as I sat beside her. Everything handled, everything I said. Her name's in the system. If she ever tries this again, she won't get far. Linda reached over and squeezed my hand. "Then it's really over." Yeah, I said quietly. It's over. We sat there a long time watching the water shimmer. The pool, once a symbol of stress and absurdity, now looked beautiful again, calm, clean ours. I'd started calling it the sanctuary. It wasn't about the water itself, it was what it represented. The idea that peace can exist even in the middle of madness if you're stubborn enough to defend it. That evening, as the sun dipped low, I poured myself a drink and settled into my favorite chair by the pool. The light turned everything gold, the fence, the rippling water, even the steam rising from Linda's teacup. She smiled at me from across the patio. "You look content." "I am," I said. For the first time in a long while, she tilted her head. "Do you ever think about her?" I chuckled. "Only when I see a clipboard." Linda laughed, that warm, real laugh I'd missed. "You know," she said, "most people would have snapped. You kept your cool." I came close a few times, I admitted. But here's the thing about people like Maya. They feed on chaos. You fight back with anger, they win. You fight back with proof, patience, and peace. They fall apart. Linda nodded thoughtfully. "So what's the moral of our story then?" I looked at the water, at the fading reflection of the house, and said that sometimes the loudest person in the neighborhood is just the most afraid of silence. And sometimes the only way to beat them is to stop playing their game. She smiled. "You should write that down." "I just did," I said, raising my glass. "Right here." The sound of distant laughter drifted across the fence, the new neighbors playing with their kids. The smell of barbecue wafted through the air. It was a normal evening again, and I realized how much I'd missed normal. As twilight deepened, I turned on the pool lights. The water glowed blue, the soft hum of the filter like a heartbeat. I felt grateful not just for the peace, but for the lesson it brought. For months I'd been angry, frustrated, even humiliated. But now I understood that boundaries aren't just fences, they're reflections of self-respect. And when someone tries to bulldoze through them, your response defines the kind of person you are. Maya had tried to own everything she saw, but she never understood that ownership isn't about control, it's about care. She wanted authority. I wanted quiet. And in the end, quiet won. I leaned back, watching the stars flicker to life. "You know, Linda," I said softly, "I think this place finally feels like home." She smiled. "It always was. We just had to reclaim it." I nodded. "Yeah. Sometimes peace isn't something you find, it's something you build." We sat in comfortable silence after that, the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. And if there's one thing I've learned through this whole ordeal, it's this: there will always be a Maya somewhere. Someone who believes rules don't apply to them, who mistakes control for leadership, who can't stand to see others simply minding their own business. But there will also always be people like us, people who draw the line, hold their ground, and protect what's theirs, without losing their humanity. So to anyone listening, take it from an old man who's been there. If someone ever tries to control your peace, don't shout louder, stand firmer. Document everything, stay calm, and remember, you don't need to win their war. You just need to keep your ground until they walk away. Because when they finally do and the silence settles, you'll realize something powerful. The sound of peace isn't quiet, it's the sound of freedom. And that's the sound I hear every morning now, as the sunlight hits the water and the world feels simple again. If you've ever had your own HOA Maya in life, someone who just couldn't mind their own business, tell me your story in the comments below. And if you enjoyed mine, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unbelievable HOA stories from around the neighborhood. Until next time, stay calm, stay kind, and guard your peace like it's your favorite pool.